Morning, everybody. We're down in the man cave on the fly tying bench again today. Winter finally showed up. It's cold and snowy outside, and I didn't want to go out there and play in the cold and snow yet. So we're going to do at least start down here on the bench this morning for this one. We got a little bit of a Napa Flate adjacent project today. On the Jeep, I already have an Anderson connector, one of these 175s. I swapped out the 50 for a 175 on the front of the Jeep, so I already have that connector on there. But on the truck, I still don't. So to use this on the truck, I did take the alligator clips, and I made a set of alligator clips that just clips on here that I can clip on the battery. But I do want to have a matching Anderson connector on the truck, so it's just a matter of, again, just plug and play with this compressor when I want to use it out there. So we're going to build a little wiring harness adapter for the Anderson connector on the truck. And while we're at it, we're also going to take a set of jumper cables. This will be no surprise to anybody, but scrounged up a free set of jumper cables. These are actually a pretty good set. They're a 20 foot, I think they're 20 foot. I don't remember. I think they're a 20-foot set, but they're 4-gauge wire. It may not quite be 4-gauge, but it's definitely better than a lot of them that are out there labeled as that. But we're going to take and make a set of Anderson connector style jumper cables out of this set, so that if I need to ever use the truck to jump somebody, or the truck's dead and I need to get it jumped, I'll be able to just plug the one end of the jumper cables right into the Anderson connector under the hood of the truck and stretch them out that way. But we're going to cut this up, put 2 connectors on there so you can still connect it together and make a regular set of jumper cables with alligator clips on both ends. But it'll also have the long side will plug right into our Anderson connector. So that's what we're working on today. I got online. I went and found some. This is 2-gauge welding cable. Not cheap, but for the amount that I need, I only need maybe 2 or 3 feet of this to build the section that goes on the truck. So 3 feet each of red and black welding cable from a welding supply online, US made, all copper, high quality cable. This was $25 shipped. So not cheap, but also not really too expensive if you don't need a lot of it. And we didn't need a lot for this project. The rest of the length of the jumper cables is going to come for the jumper cable set down there. But I also got some more 175 Anderson connectors. I'm going to show you how I do these. When you buy these off of Amazon, they typically come, I think all of them, unless you really search, come with 2-gauge connectors in it. Great if you're using 2-gauge or even 4-gauge wire. If you go down to 6-gauge, these aren't necessarily ideal, but they work, and so I don't mind saving a couple of bucks on these and getting the 2-gauge style connectors for what I do. The one downside is they're pretty stout. They don't crimp well. I don't know if you guys can kind of see that up there, but they've got some pretty thick walls on these aluminum connectors, and unless you have really high quality crimping gear, they just don't crimp very well. So, and I don't have the high end crimping stuff to make a real good crimp connection. So we're going to solder them. Not necessarily a solder fan. I like crimping where I can. I think it's a better connection for automotive style stuff. But we're going to solder these today. We're not going to use soldering iron or your standard solder. We've got our butane torch, and we're going to use the solid core solder that you'd use for soldering pipes. There's no reason to use your rosin core solder, your small rosin core solder for this. It actually works well. We do have the rosin here, the flux in a can. Will flux what needs to be, and we won't have a problem with too much flux, which is, I have done these in the past with your small rosin core stuff that you'd use for electronics or wiring, and what you end up with is a big molting pool of flux on top of this with the solder underneath, and it kind of makes a mess and just not very convenient. So I'd much prefer to do it with your plumbing solder and the the paste here as opposed to using flux core solder. So I'm going to show you how I do this. Is it the right way? I don't know. I do know that I've been doing them like this for years and they work for me. So this is how I keep doing them, but I'll bring you along, show you how I do it. Okay, bring you guys back in here real quick and show you how I do this. So I got a set of vice grips here. Got one of the connector ends just chucked up in the vice grips. That's just so that it can hold it here while I'm soldering. And then what I do, you can kind of see, I already got some of them stuck in there, but I cut short lengths of solder and stick that solder in, and then just take a set of pliers, just kind of tap it down in there. You can buy what they call slugs for these of solder that just actually fits down in there and as a slug of solder. But took my acid brush, my flux brush, lightly flux the inside of that, but we're going to flux the end of this wire as well, and I'm going to take a minute to do this and kind of work the flux in good. I really work it in there. So now that's fluxed. Set that out of the way. We're going to set that there. And then the other thing you're going to want to do is spool yourself off a length of flux, or excuse me, of solder, because you are going to want to make sure this is good and full of solder before you dunk your wire down in. And that's what we do, is we heat the outside of this till everything melts. Make sure it's got enough solder in there. We dunk our wire down in. When our wire's dunked down in, kind of hold it, make sure it stays straight up and down in there, and feed a little extra solder in until it quits taking solder. Doing it that way doesn't overheat our wire. Now, one of the things of working with solder and flux and all that kind of stuff is if you get this wire very hot, the solder will actually start to flow up inside the casing of the wire and makes this end real brittle, real stiff, and just kind of takes away from the function of it, because you lose a lot of the flexibility that you're paying for in this high-end wire. So I heat the connector till it gets nice and molten and flowing. Then we dunk our cold wire in, and it will heat enough in that time to flow the solder into just the end of the wire and not have it wick very far up into the coating on the wire. So here we go. We're going to do this one, show you how it's done. Okay, I got my cut good and full. A little more heat to it, get everything back up to temp, and just touch it on there and we're good. So, made a little mess, got a little solder out there. I'm not used to working with actual 2 gauge when I do this, so made a little bit of a mess of that one. I'm going to have to clean some solder off the outside and trim up some fibers that didn't quite push their way down in there. But that's how it's done, and I'm barely getting heat to this point in that wire, so it didn't get any solder flowing up in. You can see it's still flexible at that point, but it's on there. That's a good connection. I can see that the solder has flowed into the fibers as I'm looking in there and made a good connection. Then we're going to do that on the other, or on our red wire. We'll put this set of connectors together, then we'll move on to our jumper cables. All right, bring you guys back in real quick. There's the positive lead done. There's the ground lead done. Had to clean a little solder off the end of that one, but we got her handled. You can see I did put some shrink tube over that. That's just me being perfectionist with my wiring. I like to have good shrink tube connections on just about everything. So now we're just going to take these. This is a real easy part with these Anderson connectors. They're marked positive on one side, negative on the other side. So we take our positive wire. You can notice it has a little hook on one side of it. I don't know if you can really see it. This side's kind of bulged out, and this side has a hook on it. So we're going to take that. Inside your connectors are some little stainless steel tabs in there. The hook end hooks over the tabs. So when you look at this, I want to run this one in the positive side, and I want that hook to hook over the tab. So it's going to go in with the hook down like that into the positive side of our connector. You can see it poke its way in there, and then you just stick those up. Not quite hooked over the hook yet, so this is where it takes a little extra push, and you can hear it click. I don't know if you heard that. You can hear it click, and now it's in there solid, and it doesn't come out. If you do make a mistake, it is possible to take a little screwdriver like this. You can go in here, you can push the tab, that stainless steel tab down, get a hold of this, and you can work this, and this will pop out if you need to undo these for some reason. But that's all it takes to put those together. So we'll take got our ground side, same thing. Gonna stick it up in there. This one had a little extra solder on it, so it's gonna take a little extra force to get it to click. I don't know if you guys heard that, but it did. That one didn't click as loud as the other one, but it is up in there. I can see that the tab is hooked under the notch there, and I can pull on them and they don't come out of there, so they're locked in there. Now, one other thing I like to do with these connectors on when I'm working on systems like this, I got another big piece of shrink tube here that'll fit over the two wires. And I like to bring this up, and this just kind of helps sort of. I'm not going to run a loom all the way along these wires, no need to, but if we pull this up in here like this and then we shrink tube that down, that just holds everything solid there. It also gives you a nice place to grip on the wire if you want to. And then we just take and shrink tube this down, and yes, I'm using a torch, don't really care. Opinions on using a torch, I should probably be using a heat gun, but like I said, don't really care. But there you go, precision guided shrink tubing. And that's the good glue. It's got the glue inside. You can see a little bit of the glue coming out there where it shrunk just a little bit, pulled down this way just a little bit, and there's some glue hanging out there. So that's the good stuff. But there you go. That's how I finish off that Anderson connection cable. And we got this other end. I haven't done anything with this end yet. We'll go do that on the truck. We're going to find wherever it fits under the hood nice. We'll run these ends back, cut them off wherever we need to, and we'll crimp and shrink tube some ends onto these cables, make it nice under the hood of the truck. But we'll do that out on the truck. Hopefully it warms up a little bit outside today, so we can do that outside. So we can actually go outside and do that today. But there's the end that's going to go on the truck. Now we're going to pull up the jumper cables. We're going to just repeat the process with these and build a set of jumper cables. As you can see, I split the jumper cable into individual wires for this end. It's just a little easier to work with. We're going to strip these back same way we did the other cable. I'm just going to take my knife, roll it around, not really pressing very hard, just rolling it around. Then you crack it open. That went all the way through. That one was perfect. It went all the way through, all the way around. If it doesn't, you just kind of bend like this and you go in with your knife and just work the last little bit. Makes it so you can open these bigger wires without cutting any of the strands. It's one of the best ways I've figured out to do this. There's probably other ways to do it out there, but that's what works for me. So we'll get these wires stripped. We'll get set up with another Anderson connector. I got to remember to slide my shrink tube on first. This time I can't slide it on the other end. So I've got just a short piece to go on these. It's just going to be a short piece that fits on there, but we'll run it down before we snap it in the Anderson connector. We'll make sure we can get both of our wires through there and get our shrink tube on. All right, didn't want to bore you guys with all the details of all the soldering I did there, but here's our jumper cables. We got this end, it's, I don't know, 18 inches, 2 feet or so, whatever, with the shrink tube on it there to keep it from coming apart, give us a nice reinforcement. Here's the end. This is the long end. I didn't bother with any shrink tube here because these are stranded together, so just a little bit there, no problem. But you can see with Andersons how simple they are to just push them together. Got a regular set of jumper cables, pop it apart, and now this will just snap together with the connector we're going to mount under the truck. So the rest of this video, we're going to go outside and hopefully it's warm enough out there that we don't die. We're going to go out and work on the truck and get it installed under the hood of the truck. All right, outside now. Sun's trying to shine, so it's not too bad out here other than the wind just kicked up. So you might get a little wind noise. I apologize for that. but I've been fiddling around here under the truck, or under the hood of the truck, where I want this connector to be. So let me flip the camera around here and I'll show you kind of what I came up with. All right, so here we are looking under the hood of the Power Wagon here. Batteries here, positive terminals this side, negative terminals over here. So what I've got plenty of room right down in here to just kind of leave this connector hanging down here. So what I'm going to do right here is a kind of a little, I don't know, mount for something, but I can run this ground wire behind this plastic down underneath here. There's plenty of room to run it behind there, and that'll kind of retain it over here out of the way of the battery. And then back here on the where the negative terminal is, we're just going to turn it, bring it right over here to the negative terminal of our battery. That way, if we have to replace our battery, it's easy to get it out of the way. With our hot side, we're going to bring it right here. We'll zip tie these together right here. May even slide a piece of shrink tube over it and shrink tube it right there. Then we're going to turn the hot wire over this way. Whoops, hard to do one-handed here, sorry. Turn the hot wire over here and run it up on top of the battery that direction. So I'm just going to mark that off. The 3 feet works perfect for the ground cable. I'm just going to mark a couple of these places on the hot lead, and then we're going to go inside the garage, shut the door out of the wind, and put the connectors on. All right, guys, let's just kind of set up on my cart here so you can kind of see what's going on. I got this piece of shrink tube here on over both pieces. That's going to kind of where I marked where our bend was going to be on the wiring. Got a couple of individual pieces slid on for connectors, and for terminals I've got some these are some actually number 2 wire. They're rated for number 2, or sized for number 2 I should say, and got good eyelets in them. These are good heavy duty set. I'm not sure where I got them, but they're pretty good quality. They were for another project I did. Had a couple left over, so that's going to work out perfect. So all we're going to do on the ground cable, like I said, we're going to leave it full length. We're just going to put that on there, crimp it. I've got my Chinese crimpers here. They work just fine. I can find a size that'll work for these number 2s. We'll crimp that on. Then I marked my hot lead right here. We'll cut it, strip it back, and we'll put that lead on right there. And then we'll have this kind of harness built. It'll go up in the truck, and then we'll hook it up. So I'll just kind of leave you guys there, bring you along as I do this. Okay, that's perfect there. So now we're going to set our connector, or our crimpers here. We're going to start with the 35 millimeter, well, it's a 35 size international. We're going to start with that size in there. We may flip down to the next size smaller on these once we crimp this one, see how it goes. But then it's just a matter of putting this up in here, crimping it down, and I like to use my bench as part of my crimp. And that didn't crimp quite tight enough for me. It's on there, but I'm not satisfied with it, so we're going to drop down to the 25 size, and we're going to crimp that one more time. Just didn't take enough force to crimp it on there. Just don't trust it. Yeah, that's gonna. Okay, that was a good crimp there. The one complaint you see with these Chinese crimpers, they leave a little flag right here. If that sticks out too far, you just put them back in the crimper and crimp again right over top of that, and that will smash that little flag down. But that's on there solid, so we'll just slide up our piece of shrink tube, slide it right up and shrink tube it down. There you go, got our end terminated there. Good piece of shrink tube, crimped connector, not going to come apart, and it's waterproof. So now I'm just going to cut the other one. I'm going to do the same thing though. I'm going to start when I crimp these, I'm going to start with the 35 because that worked out real well. Start with the 35 and go down to the 25 when I crimp it. So got our mark there. Using our compound dikes again. A little tougher with that 2-gauge wire, but you saw that it cut them, no problem. And just take our knife, and I'm not slicing when I do this. I'm just rolling the knife around the outside of the wire. Roll it around there, then you just kind of start bending it. And you look down in there and see where it hasn't cut. You roll your knife around it again until it slices through all the way. The spot there we missed. There we go. There's our stripped wire. I'm actually going to strip that one back a little farther. Didn't quite get it long enough. Get our ends nice again. Make sure our shrink tube's on. One straggler strand there. There we go. Okay, same thing. Going to start with our size 35. That got it kind of set. We're going to spin our crimpers back to a 25. Stick it in there again. You make this a little harder. And you can grab a hold of those and pull on them. That's as solid as it gets. So I kind of want to get this laying in here the way I want it. Got it marked where I want it. Now I'm going to shrink tube that piece on there to make it kind of a loom, I guess, if you will, or a harness. All right, lay that down there so it kind of, as it cools, I want it to kind of cool in that position. Forgot to grab my weatherproof connector. I am going to use that on this one. Typically I don't use these because they don't tend to help much, but since this one's got to live underneath the hood of the truck and it's not going to get used very often, I'm going to go ahead and slide that keeper or that cover up on there so that I have a weatherproof connection on there. But get this finished up, we'll take it back out the truck. Okay, back up under the truck here, under the hood of the truck, we got our connector just kind of stuffed down there. He's easy to pull up out of that area, lay up there on top when we need him, but he can live right down in there. You can see our wire. Kind of show you, can't really get a good, but this plastic bracket here that mounts some of those boxes and stuff, we just ran our wire right here behind it, popped it out up here, and it's just going to run out, hook to that connector there. Back over here on the positive side, we're going to hook to this connector right up here on top, right there, and that's how our wiring is going to lay in there, and should be just fine. So real happy with how that turned out. Get this finally hooked up here, get the nuts tightened down, and get everything buttoned up. Then I'm going to set my compressor up here, the old Napa Flake. Going to set it up here, hook it up the 4-tire system to the truck, and just make sure it fits all the way around to the truck like it was. I've tested it on the Jeep, perfect for the Jeep. Build it so it should be long enough for the truck, but haven't tested it yet. So I'm going to lay it out here, test it, make sure it works great on the truck as well. We'll use our connection here to power it. But there you go. That's how you take a set of jumper cables, make them quick disconnect, and how I installed an Anderson connector under the hood of my truck so that I can have quick, easy access for not only my compressor hookup, but for those jumper cables as well. So hope you enjoyed that one, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.